Hello, 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 folks. Welcome. What's up? All right. So, YouTube and Facebook, you know the deal. You got to speak when you join in order for me to know that you are here because Restream doesn't show me unless you chat me. So, speak once you get in the room. That is great. TikTok. What's up? How are you guys doing? Um, I know you're letting people know. What's up, WSB? Haven't seen you in a minute. Hey, here for the sim. What's up, City Girl? Good to see you. Hey, Janice Bird. How are you, Lady T? How are you? Hey, Amy. What's up, Coco? Just there. Hey, what's up, John? Hey, Amanda. What's up, Sherry? Win Dixie, I see you. Hey, Scott Stan. Good to see you all. Thank you for sharing the live, Lady T. Donna Ski. Hey, Kimber. What's up, Shannon? Hello, Danielle. Hey, John. Hey, Pamela. I see you over there in YouTube land. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Hey, Tori. Gosh, TikTok's happening really, really quick, which I'm good with. Love that. All the things. So we have a different kind of TikTok live tonight. What's up, Roy DeBoy? Good to see you. Just here for the dad jokes. How are you? What's up, Patrice? How is everyone? Y'all doing all right? It's been a lot. Hey, Deborah, good to see you as well over on YouTube World. Facebook and YouTube, remember that if you don't speak to me in the comments, I can't see you. I don't know you're here. Hey, Celia. Hey, Lisa, good to see you. You love my lipstick? Thank you. Watch this. All my subscribers over in TikTok land, tell Lisa where the lipstick is from. Tell Lisa, because everybody always asks about this lipstick. Y'all go ahead and let them know. Where's the lipstick? Hey, Rita, good to see you. Hey, Blue Nevada. Hey, Carla. What's up, Tammy? Hey, Linda. How is everyone? Y'all know where the lipstick is from. The beauty supply store, right? It don't even have a name. It's one of those. It's one of those little beauty supply stores you see in the hood, in the little like by your grocery store in the shopping complex, and all it says is beauty supply on top. That place right there. Hey, witch, what's up, Brandy? Trigger watching from the heart of the South. Well, there you go. I'm good. I'm okay with that. Hey, Vicky, Carla. Good to see you all. All right. So listen, I'm really excited about tonight. You're on your walk. We'll catch up. Love that. You can catch up tapping when you get home. Okay. So a couple of things. If you all will notice, I actually like literally have the official podcast image up here on Facebook. And the reason why is I was going to live stream this using what's up, DJ Truce? I was going to do this on Podbean, like on the actual podcast platform. And then I gave a test run this morning and realized that when you do it like that, it doesn't stay up like as an episode. Thanks, Pamela. I appreciate that. So Pamela said she enjoyed the new podcast episode today. So if you guys haven't listened yet, the new podcast episode is up. It is called The Schumer Delusion. So we're going to talk about this. Chuck Schumer talking about the fact that he doesn't think that we are quite at a constitutional crisis yet, or democracy is quite not at risk. And I just am like, dude, you must be delusional. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, I have been emotional for 2 days. I have been gaslit. I have been all you can imagine. You felt me on that one. Yeah, Amy. And the more that things happen, the more that I find that, my emotion kind of shows up, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that it is one of the things that we are missing from our political conversations is actual emotion and connection and all the things that we talk about here all the time, right? So appreciate you guys for all the goats that you're sending. And I appreciate all that. You listened to some of it. Thanks, Paula. Okay, so let me just say this. So I have, you don't know anyone, Nonstop Joy. Just say, see, you have children, Amy. So I knew that you would be able to relate to that. When I saw that clip today, I was like, oh my God, that is how I feel. That is how I feel. So, hey, Paula. So good to see you all. So let me go ahead and share with you all kind of what's going to happen. I have a incredible guest with me who's also a just a fierce fucking individual who I have grown to admire greatly over the last couple of years that we've gotten to know each other. We've done some work in similar spaces with rural organizing and things like that. His name is Joe Sudbay. If you're not following Joe on Blue Sky, make sure that you do that. Sudbay, Sudbay, Joe Sudbay. That's the guy. Now, he has a show that is on it's called State of the States. It is on SiriusXM Progress, channel 127, Saturday mornings at 9 a.m., right? And it's also on demand. Here's what I love about Joe's show. is different from everyone else, where everyone's focused on absolutely everything that Trump is doing and everything that Congress is doing and all of that. It is literally state of the states. And I think a lot of times we skip over how important our local and state elections are and how important our state legislatures are and exactly what happens on those fronts. And so in our arena, us together, we have been talking about ways for us to be your new staff at Ballad. Julie. So thank you, John. I appreciate that. So Julie, let me say this, love. I appreciate you and your hard work. Since you are on my live and you are commenting and saying that you work there, just be mindful of your comments. Because what I do know is that Ballad Health has, for the last 6 years, monitored my social media. I have seen staff be held accountable for participating in my social media, especially when there are discussions around ballots. So I hope that I'm just giving you that so that everything is okay for you. Okay. So let me share with you what's going to happen. So Joe is going to be with us here in the next 5 minutes or so for a minute. And then at the 7 o'clock hour, Dr. Alex Maki is going to join me. Now, those of you all who are here from back home, like Witch and Winn-Dixie and several of the other folks, you know the name Maki. You know that Alex's dad, Dr. Anton Maki. Okay, love it, Julie. He was the infectious disease specialist back home at Ballad Health, before it was Ballad Health at Holston Valley Medical Center. You probably know that a year ago, he showed up presenting at Holston Valley with what Dr. Maki knew to be, what Alex knew was a heart attack, even though the staff there ardently told her that's not what the case was. Great physician, yes. And so, he passed in May. Matter of fact, he and Dr. PJ Powers passed within 2 weeks of each other in May of last year. So as you all know, Dr. Powers was Bella's neonatologist, one of them, along with Dr. Tanvir. And so, Alex, now let me just say this. She is also on call. Okay. She is also on call tonight. So as a physician, if something happens and she's not able to join us, we'll circle around and bring her back. So don't fret about that. Give me a second at 7 p.m. And so we'll just kind of, me, fly by the seat of our pants and get things done, right? I did have a podcast about this. So it's the podcast episode is called Monopoly. It's Not Just a Game. And Alex joined me and talked at length about her thoughts around Ballad Health, the healthcare that her father received. Maki, that's her last name. So Dax, she is not at Ballad Health. Her dad was, right? But she's a general surgeon that practices in Kentucky. Hey, Tony, good to see you. So first, let me say this. I appreciate you all for tuning in. If you have questions for Joe as we go through this conversation, and for Alex, once it's her turn, make sure that you request to come up on the panel. Joe will be able to hear you. You will be able to hear him. And I really want you to pick his brain when it comes to your state legislatures. Ask him questions. He's just, so here's the thing. You're really, really blessed in politics when you meet people who are like-minded and similar. But when you meet people who are like-minded and they're similar, not just in politics, but in how they view humanity and human beings, then you get to be really, really blessed. And that's the way I feel about having Joe. So again, make sure that if you are a SiriusXM subscriber, he's on channel 127. His show is State of the State. Okay, so I'm going to bring him on here in just a second. Things that I know we're going to talk about is the state of affairs, right? I'm going to talk about Chuck Schumer. If you listen to the podcast episode that I put up today, I was a little pissed with good old Chuck, and we're going to talk about that too. Hey, Katrina. So having said all of that, let me bring old Joe up in here. I could even play around with like sound effects and things, but I'm not. Oh, the state of affairs. Oh, the state of affairs. Right, Amanda. Oh, the state of affairs, because they are something, aren't they? They are something. All right. So, hey there, Joe. Thank you for joining me, my friend. I truly appreciate you.
Dani, thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I mean, I want to just tell everyone, in addition to my State of the State show, which I love doing and we're going to talk about, I also get to guest host. One of the great treats for me over the past few years is having Dani on as a guest. And none of you will be surprised by this, but whenever I have Dani on as a guest, the calls start coming in one after another, telling me how much they love Dani Cook. And that's exactly how I feel. So I'm deeply honored to be with you today. Thank you. What a treat.
Yeah, it is. He's usually hitting me up going, "Hey, I'm guest hosting. You good? What day are you good next week?" And I'm like, "Whenever you want to have me." Right? Linda Johnson over on TikTok said we love her too, and I love them too. Right? I think Joe, you know me, and like I'm just extremely passionate about a lot of different things, and I have found myself the last few days or so really feeling this I don't even know how to say it. It's this mixture. The way I described it today in this podcast episode that I did was I said I'm swinging. If you can imagine my little face on a pendulum that swings from side to side, right? And when I'm on this side of the pendulum, it's like I just want to hold everybody's hands and let's have a kumbaya moment and let's figure out how to get connected and get together. And then when I swing to the other side of that pendulum, I want to like throat punch you. and I said today, I said, not that I ever would. Like I'm not actually going to ever physically hurt anybody, but sometimes for those people who are not doing what they should be, especially by the people. And this is what I said. I said, have you ever like been like punched in the throat? But it's not so hard that like you get knocked out. Like I don't want to Mike Tyson you. I just want to do like a quick like Mayweather jab, just enough to make you catch your breath and be like, what the hell was that? Like that. And I said, so I feel like I've been swinging from side to side on that pendulum, and I want to stay on the kumbaya side. Like I really want to. And then there are some people that I'm like, you deserve a throat punch. and I want to give you one right now, right? But how have you found yourself feeling, especially with the things happening within the Democratic Party, and the things that are happening in the courts and the responses to those things? Hey, Vanessa.
Yeah, it's so much. I mean, it is a pendulum. And I have to say, I've done politics for years. I've worked in a lot of progressive issues. I've been in DC. It's funny, I've been in DC, but I've never felt part of DC because I always work on issues that the kind of DC Democratic establishment doesn't really want to have anything to do with. I spent a lot of time on LGBTQ plus issues. I worked in gun violence prevention. I work on immigration issues. And you always feel like people in the Democratic establishment are like, oh Christ, we don't have to deal with you. But then they come to you in election time and they want you to help them.
Yes.
And one of the things I've been really struggling with was last week when Chuck Schumer announced that he was going to go along with the Republicans. And I was outraged. I was just completely outraged.
Yeah.
Where is the fight? Now, it's amazing to me. The fight is not happening in this city. I've been in Maine for a while, but I'm back in DC. There is no fight in this city. There's this kind of, I mean, Schumer on Chris Hayes last night. I was pulling what's left of my hair out, Dani. I'm also a lawyer too, not a real one, but I did go to law school. And
well, you're more of one than what's her name? Oh my gosh, what's the little young girl, Jenna Ellis? If you remember during the January 6th like investigations, Eric, listen, Eric is my boy, right? Eric Hirschman. And he says in his transcript about her, he said, she looks like a good lawyer on TV. Like, oh, you play a good lawyer on TV, right? So, but you're a real lawyer. Like you went to law school and all. Yeah, our guy, Amy, right?
And I actually passed the bar too, surprisingly. But one of the things it's been maddening to me, and the fight has come from outside of DC. That is the thing that's inspired me. The town halls. There was a town hall last night in Spokane, Washington, where this Republican first termer, hundreds of people showed up to push him. And the fight has been in town halls around the country, and people showing up and people protesting and doing the Tesla takedown. And it's like, there's this anger that exists and this fury and this frustration and this fear about our actual democracy that is not, you don't see Democrats on Capitol Hill, most of them understanding it and grasping it. And I have felt this for a long time. It's so interesting. I've, I worked against the NRA for years, right? I learned a lot working against the NRA. You learn a lot about how the other side does their work. On the other side, Republicans tend to fear their base. Democrats have disdain for their base. There was just actually a meeting out in Loudoun County where a group of centrists got together, and they're very concerned that they want to discount small dollar donors. They don't want groups to ask candidates to appear for them. It's like, who do you think is going to do the get out the vote? Who does this? And these are the same people that are like, this one drives me crazy, and especially, Dani, because I talk to state legislators every day. They're like, and I hear this a lot from kind of this professional DC consulting crowd. We need to get out in real communities. We need to get out of DC. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me throw this. Let me get hypothetical, Dani. What if around the country there were sort of like state-based versions of what exists in Congress, and they have legislators who actually are elected, who represent suburban, urban, and rural districts, and they're Democrats. They actually knock doors, talk to voters. Most of them are citizen legislators, so they live in their communities and run into their constituents. And what if in some of these towns there were like town councilors or city councilors or county commissioners who actually do this work every day? And it so describes the disconnect between DC that you see these, you see articles in Politico and these other guys are going there, well, Democrats have to get out of DC and talk to real people. And I'm like, you have this infrastructure that exists already. And these are people who are on the very front lines of trying to save democracy in their states, or in many states. And on State of the States, I had Jess Piper on from Missouri a couple weeks ago. She was talking about what it's like if you live in Missouri. You are living under Project 2025.
Yes,
you have been for a while. Last week I had Bob Herndon, who started this group in Georgia called Fighting 50, and he's doing a lot of the same kind of work that Jess is doing, where they're trying to recruit Democratic candidates to run in districts where Democrats traditionally don't run. And they did this in North Carolina. They do it in North Carolina in 2024, understanding I'm going to run. I might not win, but I want to get out and talk to voters. I want to bring a progressive message.
Yeah.
And I know that the more votes I get, the better it helps the top of the ticket. And look, in North Carolina, they had great Harrison Walz didn't win. They elected a governor, attorney general, lieutenant governor, secretary of education, commissioner of education, and they won a Supreme Court seat by around 800 votes. All of these votes matter. And it's like, I find it so enraging. It's tough being in DC on so many levels right now. Like, I live off Connecticut Avenue, and in the morning, the first thing I hear is JD Vance's motorcade driving down Connecticut Avenue. And that's what I give Oliver, my dog, credit. He howls when he hears that, and I do too.
We love that, Ollie. Howl at JD Vance's motorcade when it goes by. We love that. So let me ask you this, because I'm not the DC. So despite what people thought, who were like, you're being paid by the DNC, never have I ever. Right. And I've never been a part of the Democratic machine that appears to exist. So I sit on the outside and I see lots of things. And here's all I know. All I know is that what I see resonating with people is authenticity.
Oh, yes.
Right? Just real talk, straight talk, even if you don't have the answers, right? I find that is what's lacking. And so, like, one of the things that I was talking about today on the episode that I just did. So I do this training. We're going to have another one, you guys, by the way. We've done 3. So when I do trainings for folks, workshops, I don't charge anything. I just throw up a link, and the first 100 people that max out my Zoom, great. You're invited and you're coming. And then I post them on YouTube afterwards. And so we did one called Carve, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, right? Katzman do. Before I could even say it, it's in the chat on TikTok, Carve. But then we did another training called Get Into Good Trouble. And in that training, I literally talked to people about how to send FOIA requests because people didn't know. They didn't know that you could get information on a local, state, and federal level from, government agencies, from your politicians, like how to word them. We talked about, when you do a petition, do you do an online petition or do you do like old school hand petitions? Which ones? Because there are pros and cons, and in which scenarios are the best. What's the best way? You and I have talked about this to hold your elected officials accountable on social media. And I tell people it's not just enough to call an email. I want them jokers being tagged on everything, letters to the editor. So we do all these different types of trainings. And here's what I believe with everything in me. If it was solely about good policy that was the best for people, and when I say people, I mean the average, ordinary individual, right? If it was only that, Democrats would lose. I mean, they'd win hands down every election. If it was only about good policy, there is a disconnect somewhere between policy that is good for people and the candidates that are running for office that want to implement them or who say they're going to implement them. There's a disconnect. And there's a disconnect between MAGA voters, who they are in the voting booth, versus who they believe themselves to be in regular life.
Yep.
Right? They believe, those MAGA voters believe that they are good, God-fearing Christian folk. They feed the homeless. They do this, they do that. Like they literally, like they can virtue signal all day long. And I'd help my neighbor. So in my head, I always hear MAGA like that because I'm from Northeast Tennessee. So when I hear MAGA in my brain, it sounds like that. But it's, we help anybody. It don't matter what anybody looks like. I'd help anybody. And the reality is that's not translating to how you vote in the booth, right? And so I believe this with everything in me, is that if we do, and when I say we, I mean progressives, if we do not figure out how to connect first with each other, because we are not a connected group of people. Progressives are not connected to each other. It is apparent in the Democratic Party, right? So first, we must be able to connect with each other. And then we've got to be able to connect with our voters, our non-voters, right? The average person. And then we've got to be able to connect with the folks that voted a different way and don't know how to undo what they've done, even if they might want to somewhere, right?
Yep.
And I believe the only way that you develop that connection with people is you have to bring 4 things. I wish you could see the TikTok chat right now. I'll make sure that I post it so that you can see it. But and they may do it on YouTube and things like that as well. But here's what I love is, so guys, what are the 4 things we bring to every conversation? If we want to connect with people and create understanding, even if we don't get agreement, we got compassion. Amy says, what's the other ones? See, they know. What are the 4 things we bring to every? Authenticity, respect. And what's the last one? You ought to see my little TikTok just going. Vulnerability. Absolutely. So here's what I believe, Joe. I believe if we bring compassion, authenticity, respect, and vulnerability to every conversation, no matter what we disagree on, we will create understanding, even if we don't get agreement. And an understanding is connection, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like people are like, oh my God, that sounds like a bunch of emotional mumbo jumbo, right? Let me tell you something. Y'all been doing it without it. And how's that working for you?
Right. Right.
Right? How's
Yep.
it working for you?
Yep.
Yeah. And so we call it, that's my acronym. We call it CARV, CARV, right?
I love it.
So what do you think, having been, you're right beside the DC machine. What is the likelihood? What's up, Jessica Simone? What is the likelihood that the powers that be are going to understand that it is not about, I wish they would not say Donald Trump or Elon Musk for an entire month and just see what happens. If instead of talking about Trump and Musk for an entire month, if all we talked about was the actual impact of their changes on people, if we actually interviewed and talked to the people that it's happening to, instead of talking about Trump, what if I just brought you Granny and Papa? What if I just brought you single mom with 2 kids? Love you back, Allie. Right? What if we did that? Would that change things?
Well, first of all, I think I love it. First of all, I love Carve. And I think this is let me take it out of DC because it's
Okay.
one of the reasons I like and I love talking to state legislators and state legislative candidates. Because and when you're knocking doors in people's homes and asking them for a conversation, you have to show compassion. You have to show authenticity. There's a vulnerability on knocking on someone's door, right?
100%.
Right? And you have respectable conversations. And that is I love like it's the thing I love the most when I'm talking to a new candidate or someone who's running for the first time, someone who's decided and it's tough, you know. I know you've talked about this, like putting yourself. And I like to talk to people too who've been like campaign staffers, and then all of a sudden their name's on the lit. They're
Yeah.
the candidate, and what that transition's like.
Yeah.
Because and I feel like it's so real what when I talk to folks like that because you can't be a DCBS artist.
Right.
You can't and I feel like there's a whole industry in this town, particularly on the Democratic side, that spends millions and millions of dollars to find the right words. If we can just find the right words to say our message, then we will win. And it's like people have BS detectors. No, that's not what it is. There has to be. Look, you can say we can say what we want about Trump. I have many things to say about him. People just thought he was
No,
authentic. He
really?
said he wanted to stay right, and
Yeah.
unfiltered, and worked for him. But I do feel like and that's the disconnect. Like and when I say this, I always say on the other side, they have been very clear about why state legislatures matter. They use state legislatures as pipelines for their talent, their version of talent. Many members of Congress came up through that pipeline on the
Yes.
Republican side, some on the Democratic side, but they really work it. They use it as incubators for some of their craziest ideas, like
Yep.
anti-abortion, anti-trans, gun laws, all came up through states and they bubble their way up, and I can see them spread around the country.
Yep.
And also use them as entities to figure out how to prevent people from participating in the electoral process, gerrymandering. And the gerrymandering happens at the state and the national level. So, I don't understand why people in DC kind of are dismissive of the states, because the state legislatures, because that's who sets the districts, right?
Right.
And
100%.
And also, voter ID laws and all that, all those other things they do to prevent people from participating in the process.
Yep.
I swear it, Dani, sometimes I'll be talking to people about state legislatures and they're like, oh, they have legislatures in the state. Isn't that cute? What do they do out there? And I'm being a little facetious, but not by much.
Right.
And it's like, and again, and I feel like it's because there is this mindset in DC, and I have fought it for years. Like I literally have fought. I don't get invited to parties in DC. I don't care. Like I literally do not care. Right? I don't care.
Right.
I wrote on a blog back in the day. I pushed Obama. Literally, I sat across the table from Barack Obama and challenged him on same-sex marriage and don't ask, don't tell repeal. Now, I will always give him amazing respect for letting me sit across the table, because when they invited me in, they knew I was going to push, and he pushed back, and we had quite a conversation. And and I always remind people, look, he invited me. Donald Trump would never do that. Like Donald Trump would never do that. And I feel more and more there's a disconnect between Democrats and kind of the Democratic leaders on the Hill and the Democratic base. And I've been hearing this for a while. There's, offices don't want to hear from the advocates. They're sick of us. They're sick of hearing. They don't trust our polling. They don't do this. They don't want to hear from you. And I will give groups like Indivisible credit. Ezra has been really aggressive this year. Not even even call it aggressive. I would call it assertive in saying, we elected you to fight. You told us you were going to fight. Where is the fight?
as they should be. And I'm okay. Listen, I don't know why people think aggressive is a bad word.
Yeah,
Right?
well, yeah, I mean,
Because here's the thing. I think that, and this is again this idea that we have to play nice,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I would say 100% that the Republican Party is being aggressive. I would say
yeah.
the Trump
Oh, yeah.
administration is being aggressive, and so I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that people on our side of the aisle are getting aggressive back. As a matter of fact, I want us to be even more fucking aggressive, right?
I do too.
Um,
I do. I agree.
yeah,
I agree. I
and
agree.
Mike,
It's funny how I police myself on that because I'm like,
you
I
don't want anybody to think.
yeah, yeah,
Right? Because I mean, I'll tell you this, I have to do it all the time because, and here, but let me tell you who I want to be aggressive. Okay. I do not want Jasmine Crockett to be aggressive because then she's the angry Black woman.
yeah.
I do not want AOC to be aggressive because she's the angry, right? I want cis, hetero, white males and females in the state and federal, positions. I want them to be aggressive. I want them to be out on Front Street, as my mama would say, calling people out. Because I'm a firm believer that the people that solve the issues are the people who that structure, that infrastructure belongs to you, right? So I put up a post today. This is why I will probably never be invited to a party, Joe, anywhere. And I
We'll
don't,
have our own parties, Danny. We will.
we can have our own.
That's right. Well, it'll be more fun.
Yeah, like I don't, I am not the girl that is invited to the thing. You right? And that's
Yeah.
fine. But here's the thing. So I put up a post today and it said on Facebook, I said, dear rich Democrats, right? Because we know that you exist. Okay. So all of you who say you really support Ukraine and you actually support Palestine and all of these things, put your money where your mouth is. So why aren't you voluntarily on your own sending aid to Gaza? Why aren't you multimillionaire, right? Sending money to Zelensky? Why
Mm.
are you acting as if the only way that we can fund, right, help fund Ukraine or Palestine is through Congress? Why are we doing that? Because it gives you an excuse to keep the money in your pocket. So how about you do this? All the money that you would normally spend in lobbying for your special interests and for your corporate, breaks, why don't you get off your ass and go ahead and put your money where your mouth is and send that money where it needs to go, right? You want to do something about public education, fund it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you know
Well,
that I have, go
just
ahead.
on public education, you know what? On the other side,
Hmm.
we're dealing with these vouchers around the country, these voucher laws. They
Yep.
are driven by billionaires. The law in Texas is going to pass this year because two right-wing Christian nationalist billionaires have told Greg Abbott he has to do it. That's
Hmm.
what they do with their money. I'm just saying.
I know.
They get
They
results,
spend
right?
their money to make it happen. What are the Dems spending their money on, right?
Yeah,
As
yeah,
much as everybody wants to blame George Soros for shit, I don't see it happening the same, right? I just don't see it happening the same.
yeah.
And here's my thing, right? So you know that I have grandbabies.
I
All
know.
right.
I have
Moana
seen,
2,
I have seen them and I love them.
right? Moana 2 came out. All right. So Moana's my girl, right? She's it. But in this film, there's another female character in the film who says to Moana as she's facing this huge challenge of how can she go into the worst, biggest storm that she's ever seen, and how can she get through this storm and her and Maui get this island pulled up from the bottom of the ocean so that she can step foot on it, right? And and the girl says to her, sometimes you got to get lost in order to find your way.
Mm,
There's more than one way to make something happen.
yeah,
And as I sit back and I look at everybody going, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that. No, there's more than one way for us to get these things done.
yeah,
There's-
absolutely.
right. And so what we're doing, the systems that we have in place, they're not working.
Right.
So let's make something new. Let's do something different that actually works for us, and makes us, like, I believe that we can 100% create the world in which we can all live and live well. Nora's watching it as we speak. I love that, Amy, right? And so Amy's got a little girl named Nora, and we all know each other. We're like family around these here
I
parts,
love
Joe.
it. I love it.
But I think that this is what the party is missing. I sit up here every day from 3,000 to 50,000 people who might see me live in any one span of time. Like I've been on TikTok and literally had 3,000 viewers, and then I've been on TikTok and had 51,000, right?
Yep.
And here's my thing. Every time I'm talking, people go, was it yesterday, y'all? Was it yesterday that I did all the role playing with y'all? Everybody was like, people that I don't even know that aren't subscribers were like, do you consult? Does the DNC talk to you at all? Oh my God, your messaging is better than anything they say, and da 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 da, and all the things, right? What I know is that authenticity is what people are craving. Connection is what people are craving, and they're not getting it.
No.
They're not getting it from these sound bites with great clapbacks. They're not getting it from 100 pink suits in Congress as a form of protest. Like, can we, okay, so I like the comedian Michelle Wolf. I know she's a little for some people, right? But I saw a clip of hers today or yesterday, where she's talking about these 100 women in Congress that wore these pink suits, right? Thank you, Linda, for the reminder for folks. You love her. See, that's why y'all
I
are my
love her. I love her. I got a story about her. When you finish, I'll tell you my story.
Okay, see, this is why y'all are my people, right? But she's talking, and she's got this thing that she does on Reels called it's her thought box, right? And she read the quote from them, and the women that were doing this protest by wearing these pink suits, they said, our message is clear, right? And it was, we're making a stand, and women should have equal rights to healthcare and AB and this and that. And Michelle goes, well, first of all, your message isn't clear, because I didn't get that message from them pink suits, right? And then she said this. She said, if you're going to protest, like really be a protest. Yeah. She said, here's what every single one of those women should have done. Every minute during that speech, she said they should take turns, and one woman at a time should have burst a bag of like red paint that looks like blood on them and said, I'm having a vaginal event, right? Every minute. And she said, and that would have been 100 minutes that everyone would have heard every 1 minute, boom, I'm having a vaginal event, and like really be a protest. And I was like, yeah, why not that?
That's the whole thing. It's like, this is the whole thing. And it gets back to that respectability politics that exists. And, they censored Al Green. Are you kidding me? Oh my God, are you kidding me?
Right.
They should have canonized the guy instead. And there's this whole, and a couple of days later, there was a meeting. The House Democratic leadership convened a meeting, a come to Jesus meeting with Representative Green, Jasmine Crockett, some of the others, Maxwell Frost, the ones we all know because they do shit and speak and fight, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And it was a come to Jesus meeting. And my view was the come to Jesus should have gone the other way, because it should have been Al Green and Jasmine Crockett and Maxwell Frost having to come to Jesus with their leadership about what's going on in this country and what needs to happen and what the fight needs to be, and learn from us and follow us, because we are leading here.
Yes.
And I have to say, it's one of those things. It's like, it's so DC, like, and this respectability. This goes to my Michelle Wolf story. So,
Yeah.
I'm in DC, and they have the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which okay, usually I'm annoyed by it because it's in my neighborhood and they block traffic. And I did have to call the DC police, which I never do because they shut off Columbia Road to turn into a parking lot. And the police officer told me that didn't happen. I said it absolutely did happen. And they had to call and apologize, tell me that it would never happen again. So that's who I am, right? I'm like the neighborhood pain in the ass because I'm like, no, these rich people aren't going to come to my neighborhood and block the streets. So, anyways, that's usually how I view it. But it's, SiriusXM, who I work for, is a media company, and they got a table. And someone couldn't go. So Mike Signorelli, who's my dear friend, who brought me into SiriusXM, like he's a legend in LGBTQ activism. He was part of ACT UP. He got arrested. He's the one credited with beginning the concept of outing, although he considered it just reporting because that's all it was, telling a story. So there's nothing wrong with being gay, and telling people who are gay is not a big deal. Anyway, so Mike said, "Joe, you want to come?" So I said, "Oh, well, all right. I have to put a suit on and a tie, but it's across the street, so I'll go." So I go, and Michelle Wolf was the guest, right? She was so vicious towards that DC media, talking, you love Donald Trump, you love him, you love him, and it was so perfect. And it's how I feel about the media. This is such a cliquey group of people, and they're also full of themselves. There's actually an article, Adrian Carrasquillo has a piece in The Bulwark right now about a new club in DC where the media and Republicans and Democrats get together. It's an exclusive private club. I hate that shit. Anyways, I'm at this thing. Mike and I are sitting there laughing. I gave myself asthma. I was laughing so hard at her. And afterwards, we realized we were looking around the room. The DC media establishment was not laughing at Michelle Wolf. And it was I have quoted her so many times since then. Her takedown of, and she didn't say anything mean. She didn't say anything untrue. She basically, and she did this thing on Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and oh my God, they got the vapors. Oh my God, that's what happens in DC a lot. The DC establishment, the media gets the vapors about shit, and I'm like, you people are so full of yourselves, and like I can't watch cable news anymore. I can't watch it.
I don't.
You don't. I see clips show up. Like I saw the clip of Schumer last night because everyone shared it.
Yep.
It was so appalling. But I just there's this thing about there's this idea in DC that and I've had people say this to me, like I'd be talking about someone and they're like, they're not really like that because I know them. I've been at parties with them. Oh well, it's easy if you're a rich white cis male to think someone is a nice person if they're not trying to take your rights away or don't think you deserve to exist.
Yes.
Right. But for a lot of us, we don't have that luxury.
Which is exactly what I said. That's why the podcast episode today was called The Schumer Delusion, because and I said, in what world do you live, Chuck Schumer, that you do not think that we are at the place where democracy is at risk? Like, you must be living in the cis, heterosexual, white, rich man world, because that's the only world in which your democracy is not at risk. It is for the rest of us, 100%. And I think that this is the part that bothers me. I don't believe in things like the DC establishment. I think, fuck you. And either, like, I really do. This
is why we get along.
Is why we get along, right? Because I just think that while people are positioning themselves and posturing, right? While they're posturing for their own egos, there are children whose 504s and IEPs are at risk. While they are posturing, there are families all across the country who, people are working 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, right? Because these greedy corporations don't want to pay A, a living wage, or B, a living wage full time, right? So if you can find somebody that's willing to pay you a decent wage, it's most likely going to be part-time. And so then that means you don't make enough to get rid of the other jobs. So now you're working 2 jobs, and then who's seeing your kids? Who's taking care of life? Who's checking on babies? And then you want to blame parents because kids are having issues. Well, listen, you don't want to give them health care. You don't want to give them, you don't want to do anything for babies. You don't want to give them a safe learning environment. Let me tell you something. I said this to somebody today. I was on the phone. I had to call, and I won't say which corporation, but I had to call one of the big three when it comes to mobile phones, right? Because my daughter had gone in, she was going to get a new phone. She ended up not getting it, but the girl was trying to get her to change my plan. And I have a plan that was grandfathered in from a long time ago. And I said, tell that child, do not touch my damn account unless she is absolutely sure. And since she's new, she better go get a manager, and somebody better look up every line I have. Because like my mom's on my account, I take care of my mama, right? My daughter is on my account because I take care of my babies. My uncles, you know what I mean? And so my daughter ended up not getting the phone there and left out. And do you know this child changed my plan anyway? So I lost my hotspot on my phone, and then my bill went up by $60 a month. And I said, you have to be absolutely smoking the stuff, right? So I called customer loyalty. They put me straight to customer loyalty. I said, you listen, I have had your mobile service longer than I had my ex-husband. So I'm going to need you to fix some shit. Right? And to their credit, they did. But we're having this conversation while we're waiting for him to get approval to restore my things, right? And yeah, see, y'all laughing, but you know I'm telling the truth. I remember, listen, I know when I got them. So anyway, but we're having this conversation, and he was talking about how kids today, you know, they have this sense of entitlement, and oh, they don't want to work. And I said, I disagree. That might be some kids, but I disagree. And I'll tell you why I disagree. I think that children today, millennials and lower, right, in terms of like age, they are the first generations to grow up where there's mass unalivings in their work environment, which is their schools, every single year, right? These children have been shown the value of their lives before they ever graduate high school.
Yep.
And what they are not willing to do is spend their life sitting in your cubicle for some rich ass billionaire that doesn't want to pay a living wage and wants to take away their Social Security, right? That's what they don't want to do. And they're not wrong for that, right? Ask the boomers how it's working out for them right now. Well, you know what I mean? And I said, so let me just say this to you, sir. Imagine if every single year there was a mass unaliving at your company, at somewhere in the United States, right? Because you all have offices all across the country. What if at your particular company, or at you or one of the other, I'm going to name three. So let's just say, what if at AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, every single year, there was at least one, if not three, mass unalivings in those three corporate companies? How would the people who work for them feel having to go into work every single day? Would you be scared? Would you be traumatized? Would different sounds make you jumpy, right? And he got quiet for a minute, and I said, see, that's what we're doing to our babies. Don't expect for them to want to come work for you, and you won't even make their school safe. Get the fuck out of here with that.
Yep. This one, I get emotional about this issue. You know, I worked on this issue for a long time, and I met so many people who lost someone.
Mhm.
And I'm still haunted by it. I mean, you know, and every single person I ever met who had to deal with this, they wanted to do something to make sure another family never went through it.
Yes.
And this was in the 90s. This was in the 90s, Dani. 30 years later.
We're still here.
And it's got, and I keep hearing, you know, there's all this conversation. They'll pass legislation named for someone who's a victim of violence, one particular kind of violence. And I'm sure that many of members of Congress who can name a name of someone, you know, who was a victim of a crime for an undocumented immigrant couldn't name the people who were massacred in their state. and it
Correct.
makes me crazy. And look, and any crime is horrible, and I'm not diminishing any
Nope.
kind of crime. I'm just saying that, I just want to go back to one other point because I'm getting emotional, but I'll pull
It's
myself
okay.
together.
We do that here.
Yeah, well, it's I feel comfortable with you. That's why. One of the things, when you were talking earlier, I was thinking, one of the things that happens in so many states. Look, if you look on the past few years, states have passed Medicaid expansion. Red states have passed Medicaid expansion. Red states have passed measures protecting abortion rights, raising the minimum wage. We do progressive policies pass around the country, even as voters vote for people who would undo those policies. And then in many states, and it's a conversation we have on State of the States a lot, Republican legislators come back and figure out how they can undo them. I mean, famously down in Florida, after Amendment 4 passed in 2018, restoring voter rights, Ron DeSantis immediately set on a course to undo it. We're seeing it in Kansas on abortion, and Ohio on abortion, and Missouri. They're trying to get rid of they voted to increase the minimum wage and have paid family leave, and they're trying to get rid of it. So and that's a conundrum too, that how do we and part of it is that in many of the places the Republicans don't get challenged. Like there's
Right.
a lot of and that's where you see people like Jess Pepper and Bob Herndon trying to work to, you can't have the conversations with people if no one's running, which is why I have so much respect for them, and I have so much respect for organizations like Run for Something. And for you had conversations about this with people about what it's like to run and how they should. That matters. And it's hard. It's hard.
It
It's
is.
hard.
I told everybody yesterday, I said, so here's what I think. I think that we should not let a single seat run unopposed.
I agree.
And I said, if that means in your community, nobody else is running, in your district, nobody else is running, then you run.
Yeah.
And this is what I promised my followers yesterday. I said, here's what I will do, because I'm a believer in walking the talk. I have zero desire to run for office, right? Zero. It just does not make me happy. And here's what I will say is that if come time, no one is running against either of my state's 2 senators, okay? And these are congressional senators, okay? I will absolutely run and happily dog walk the fuck out of both of them. I'm not kidding.
No, I believe you. I do.
It gives me immense joy, just the thought of, I don't even got to win the race. I am telling you, by the time I am done, and it's not about tearing them down. It is simply about highlighting who you are. I want to give you the stage. I want people to know who you are. I want to question you about the faith that you so freely possess that you have. And guess what? Don't get it twisted. This heathen knows her Bible. So I want to listen. If you want to tell me the reason you vote the way you vote, and the reason you think the way you think, and the reason you do is because of Jesus, then we're going to talk about Jesus all day. All day. I will meet you where you are, my friend. Right. And I said to people yesterday, I said, if you are scared about running, tell me what would keep you from running. Tell me what you're worried about people saying about you. What are you I'm getting emotional. What are you concerned that people will find out about you, because none of us are perfect, right? And so they gave me all these different scenarios yesterday. Somebody said, well, what if I was like a teen or in my 20s and I had an AB, right, Joe? Or what if I have 3 babies by 3 different daddies? Or what if I have this? And so we literally on the fly on my live yesterday, I let them give me scenario after scenario after scenario. And then I gave them my plan. So one of them, this is what I said. So it was like 5 things in one thing. And this is what I said. I said, here's what, if I were their campaign manager, if I was helping them with messaging, it would be a 3. For those of you guys who are joining on TikTok, right now I have Joe Sudbay with me. He is from SiriusXM Radio. He has State of the State. He also guest hosts all the time for Dean and Michael and all those guys on SiriusXM Progress, channel 127. So this is who we're chatting with right now. So, so we're having this, and I said, so here's what I would do. I was like, first, it would be a social media video that's 3 to 5 minutes long, right? And it would be a very direct, and I would start off by saying this. All right, so listen, I'm going to tell you all these things about me, not because frankly it's any of your business, but because my opposition is going to tell you all kinds of these things about me. So yes, when I was young, like 1 in 9 girls, right? Did you know that every 9 minutes, Child Protective Services finds credible evidence of sexual assault committed against a little girl under the age of 18? Every 9 minutes, right? And so I said, this is what I would tell them. So, yep, this is the thing that happened to me. The choice that I made was to not carry to term, right? You cannot shame me for seeking healthcare that was appropriate for me and that my physician and I determined was what was in my best interest for my health and well-being, right? Next, you're right. I am divorced and I have 3 kids by 3 different daddies. And guess what? I have the right to not stay in a bad relationship even after I've had children. I have the right to leave a bad relationship even after I've had children with that person. Right. And I said, this is what I would do. And I would sum it all up in 3 to 5 minutes. Right. And then I would have ready at the end of that video an invitation to a virtual town hall. Right. And I would have that town hall 1 week later. And when people registered, the one question that I would ask them when they register would be, out of these 5 things, what's the thing that most concerns you about this particular candidate being in Congress and why? And then after the end of that town hall, I would email everyone who attended, and I would take the 50 responses that were the most visceral, the most engaging, the most emotional, and I would turn them into ads. And I would run those ads throughout my entire district, right? That would be, and then if we're talking federal, then after that, I would get in touch with, I would be showing up in my districts at least one county commission meeting, one city council meeting, right? One state, like a festival, a fall festival, a whatever. That would be it. And then I would divide by state, depending upon the size of your state or your district, into 3 to 5 sections. And then I would have a travel schedule. And somebody said, well, what if you don't like to take, what if you don't like donations? How do you handle that? And I said, be transparent. Tell people, hey, I don't like begging for money. I hate begging for money. And guess what? This is what they require I raise. This is how much they require I raise. And if you want me in office and you can donate, great.
Yeah.
Because if I'm meant to be there, I will be, but I'm not going to beg you for money and I'm not going to do corporate interests, right?
Yeah.
And so they watched me do this for, how long did we do this yesterday, guys? We did it for like 2 hours straight. And they were like, but what about this one, Dani? And so they had me, Uka had me do one yesterday about what if you just recently changed parties? I got you. Let's do that one too, right?
Yeah.
And what is that? That is compassion, authenticity, respect, and vulnerability. That's all it is. Somebody said, yep, we did debt. Right, Katzman, we did debt. Somebody said, what if you're an atheist? I said, oh, let's do that one. Can I do religion? Can I do spirituality? Right? And I said, listen, I would just tell people, so listen, I have a faith, and here's what I will tell you about my faith. And this is the only thing that you need to know as my constituent is A, it's mine. And B, I will never try to make you live by it.
I love it. This is, so I think one thing that, and again, I go back to one of the things I like dealing with state leg candidates is because, particularly the authenticity, because I feel like what happens so often to candidates who run for her office, I always call it the high pressure car wash. Like I've had friends, and you've probably had this too, Dani, and I'm sure some of the listeners said, who your friends of yours, when they decide to run for office, and it's like they've gone through a high pressure car wash, and they've been, when they come out on the other side, they talk in sound bites, they talk in ways that like they refer to themselves as we. People don't talk like that.
No.
And it drives me crazy. And I call it the high pressure car wash that you're kind of forced to go through And it's one of the reasons why, um, I think people in DC in, kind of the professional consulting class don't like the small dollars and why they're like trashing small dollar donors, which I still can't even get my head around. It's because if you have small dollar donors, you don't have to go through that high pressure car wash. You can be authentic. You don't have to spend your time kissing ass of PACs and big donors. It's
Yep.
why AOC can do what she can do, right? And that's why
Yeah.
Maxwell Frost can do it, because they don't need that infrastructure. They have, because they're so authentic,
Yep.
because and they show vulnerability. I think all of them
They
show
do.
vulnerability. I think Carve is like, that's how they live. The people we admire live by Carve. They may not realize it,
Nope.
but they do.
Yeah. So literally, so this is like I want to take the training and do another one and put it up. But this is so I'm going back. I don't know if you know this or not. So the folks at the Michigan Rural Caucus reached out to me again. Even though I'm not with RO right now, they reached out and they said, we want you to come back to the Michigan Rural Caucus. Can you do some more breakout sessions and workshops, and can you speak to the entire group? And so I said yes. So I'm going there next month. And then I'm actually doing the Virginia Rural Caucus with Roberta Thacker Oliver, and that's at the end of Virginia. And so for me, this is what I want to talk about but I want to take Carve and then I want to build it on, this about me, the foundation of data. So what I have been doing is going through that same top 100 rural counties that I did for 2023, Joe. And I have been going through them for each of the states again. And I did it right after the election, but we still had some of the data that wasn't all the way in. So I've been going back and filling in the gaps. And so what I want to do again is be able to identify where we have this data, where do we have places where, like, what can you see? So here's what I saw. I saw, especially in these rural counties, an increase in voter turnout, especially on the Republican side, right? Especially. But I saw the increase in third-party votes by astronomical numbers in rural communities. So, and Alex, I see you join me. I'm going to bring Alex on here too in just a second, but let me kind of give you an example. I have the spreadsheet pulled up because I was working on it last night. So to give you an idea, if I'm looking at Wisconsin, right, which by the way, Door County in Wisconsin flipped. Can you believe that? Door County in Wisconsin, it flipped in their House race, if I'm not mistaken. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling it up. So Door County was in their Senate race, in their Senate. So Door was Republican by a margin of 74 votes in the 2022 election, okay, for their Senate race. In their 2024 election, Door County went Democratic. And it went Democratic with a margin of 600 votes, and the third party votes, believe it or not, went from, let me see, in 2022 there were only 26 people that voted third party in Door County in 2022. In 2024, that number was 363. Joe.
Wow.
This is happening in all of them. I mean, in all of them, it's absolutely astounding when I look at which one is this. So you will see the other votes are just growing by leaps and bounds. And it's just like, what in the absolute hell
that's interesting.
happened? Yeah. And so anyway, so I want to take that data, the data that we have available to us, and build a strategy and have the data show you where to go.
Yep.
Right? Follow me. And then Carve show you how to show up when you get there.
I love it.
Right?
So important. So great. Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
So, and it's like Wisconsin's interesting because there was a new Supreme Court justice elected in April of 2023, and there's elections there April 1st this year. Elon Musk is trying to buy that seat. It's like spent $12 million already. They undid the gerrymandering because it actually violated the law.
Yes.
And Democrats picked up a lot of seats, and when you have Democratic candidates running in competitive districts, it matters. And the gerrymandering, we talked a little bit about it, and now that I'm done, met Dr. Michelle Au, who's a anesthesiologist, member of the state legislature in Georgia a couple of years ago.
Oh, so listen, she was sitting in front of me at the after the Stacey Abrams campaign, and I'm listening to her talk, and she's brilliant when it comes to talking about why to expand Medicaid and how to talk about it from a fiscal perspective.
So good. And she did this thing where she explained how gerrymandering leads to abortion bans. And I was like, she does it so well. I wrote an op-ed actually last year in the Boston Globe. A crazy thing about state legislatures. I had to quote her because I'm like, you have to understand, they can do these abortion bans because they gerrymander these states, and that's how they do it. And they don't want people to run, and they don't want people to run because they don't want to have to defend their ideas, and they set up these districts, and that just ruins democracy. So,
It does.
anyways, I could go on and on about this.
So here's what we'll do, because you and I, we do this. We get to talking. We don't realize how long we've talked. We've been at it an hour already. So let me say this. So, I want to thank you for coming. Right. B, I'm going to ask you to come back so that we can dive more into the state legislature side of things. I want people. So if there are people that have issues, so I have people. We did a tally one time on here. They're saying thank you, Joel, on TikTok. But we did a poll one night. We had 40 different states on one live represented, right? And so I want those folks to be able to ask questions about their state legislatures and what's the best way to do different things. And so you and I will touch base, and we'll bring you back. But I appreciate you as always, my friend.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone who was listening and watching. And I said it earlier, like Dani Cook to me is, I get emotional again because when I talk about you, I don't know what it was, Dani. We just clicked, and I think it's because we share the same values. But every time I speak with you, every time I am on, in meetings with you, I feel better. I feel hope, and I'm sure so many others share this with me. And I also do want to give a shout out to Oliver, who was a pretty good boy tonight. We didn't have any situations. He really is a great dog. But thank you so much, Dani. And I will come back anytime you want me.
Absolutely. Guys, make sure that you are following Joe on Blue Sky. His show on SiriusXM Progress, channel 127, is State of the State. It's also available on demand. He also guest hosts a lot for John and Michael and Dean. So he's great. He's a wealth of knowledge, but he's just an extraordinary human being that I'm blessed to know. And y'all know I don't recommend a lot of people, but Joe's just good people. And he walks his talk. So I appreciate that. Appreciate you, friend. We'll talk soon.
Love you. Bye.
I'll be back. All right. So guys, next up, we are going to be joined by, and now all my folks back home that have been waiting, who are really tired of hearing me talk about progressive Democratic shit. You've been waiting for your Ballad Health time. We're here. We have arrived. We're going to talk healthcare. We're going to talk Ballad Health and all the things. Was I ever on any Lifetime movies? No. Nope, not me. I always get that I look like somebody. Yeah, y'all are laughing. But Winn-Dixie, you guys are from back home. Brandy, you're from back home. You know good and well that all the people that are sitting back, especially on the Facebook world, have like gritted their teeth as they listened to Joe and I, or they left and came back because they want to hear Alex. And so this is Dr. Alex Maki. I got connected to Alex through a friend of mine, Kathy Weeks-Qualls. And so if you guys remember me talking about Kathy and her husband, Jerry, they were interviewed in KFF Health News after Jerry's experience of literally almost being unalived because he was in heart failure at Holston Valley Medical Center. And they told Kathy, oh, there's nothing you can do. Literally told her, get ready to go ahead and get ready to just call it in. Get ready to plan his things. And Kathy said, absolutely not. I'm getting my husband. And so she picked up the phone herself and she called Vanderbilt to have her husband, because they told her he can't get a heart transplant because he won't make it through. That was a couple of years ago now. Jerry got a heart transplant at Vandy and he's here. Alex had not the same outcome, unfortunately. And so she's here to talk to us a little bit about her experience, and also as a physician, as a general surgeon, the concerns that we all have about healthcare, especially about the monopolies and the mergers that are taking place. So thank you for joining me, Alex. Good to see you again.
Hi. Good to see you too.
I prepped everybody and I told them, listen, she's a real doctor. She doesn't just play one on TV or anything. So she is on call. So if
I
she
am.
gets a
I
call,
really am.
yeah, she really is. She's on call. And so so if we have a life be life in situation, then we'll just bring you back. So so
Sounds good.
you joined me on my podcast previously, which I'm very grateful for. It was our first time really kind of getting to chat and connect, and come to find out, I mean, I still remember when you were talking about your dad and you were talking about Dr. Powers, and I was like, Dr. Powers was Bella's nurse, and I'm her neonatologist, and all the things, and just the things that we had in common. And so I don't want to I don't want to put you in a box and say, only talk about what happened with your dad. Here's what I will
Sure.
offer you. What I would like for you to do is I do want you to touch on that. I also want you to share with people the concerns that you have and the trends that you see happening in healthcare across the board. And then offer folks some things that maybe they can do to advocate for themselves when they're in hospitals and all those different things.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really good to see you again. And I think the first point I'd like to bring out is like you talked about Kathy. She's like the ultimate advocate. I think having a person that is willing to ask the questions and willing to be like, no, I need that explained to me is really the most powerful piece to this. People who just sit back and like are like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. That's kind of how things can go sideways pretty quickly. And even when you're there asking the questions, I'm not saying that that's going to prevent, a loved one's death or something like that. But knowing what your rights are, you can ask for another opinion. You can ask to be transferred for that other opinion. And all of that is covered by your insurance. Your insurance cannot dictate what is paid for in a hospital. And I think people get so caught up with getting a huge bill. And like, we all call it the doctor bill, but it's really the hospital bill. Hopefully I didn't freeze. I think the most important aspect here is identify an advocate and make sure that you know your rights.
So
If
somebody
you
just
see,
said, wait, say that again,
sure.
please. Somebody said, wait, say that part again, please.
Okay, so I think the most important part is to just really have an advocate. Make sure that there's somebody that you can call a point person. Everybody knows a nurse. Please, try and get in touch with somebody. If you have questions, ask the physicians, ask the nurse practitioners. If you're uncomfortable that this is a nurse practitioner giving you this information, you absolutely have the right to say, I want to see a physician. Because at the end of the day, a nurse practitioner has about 500 hours. We have about 20,000 hours. So there is really no comparison. I think as far as trends are concerned, that's really, really concerning. The nurse practitioner, the PA, they were designated as physician extenders and kind of sold to the physicians as a way to help with all the paperwork. Well, through many, many law changes through many, many different states, there's been an expansion of rights available to them for the good or the bad. And now you often, when you go to a major medical center, are no longer seen as specialist. You are seen a nurse practitioner that happens to work in the office. What you don't know is, did they move to that office last week? And those are really important things to know. Nurse practitioners and PAs are not bound by the same laws that physicians are. Physicians, like if I wanted to cover a gastroenterologist, I can't. I did not go to 3 years of internal medicine, and I didn't go to 3 years of GI fellowship. I went to 5 years of general surgery. They are not interchangeable. And the thing to know is nurse practitioners and PAs really don't have fellowships. There are some people that will go into, like, if they want to do something surgical, they can do an extra year of training. But if you are seen particularly in hospital, only nurse practitioners or only PAs, and you are concerned about the care of your loved one, you have the absolute right to ask to see the physician, and you should.
Someone asks, because I will share, I can tell you, I had that problem, right? When my mother was in,
Right.
when my mom, right, remember? And my mom's situation was like her hemoglobin was 6.5 by the time I got her there. She was having multiple blood transfusions, and the doctor on call was the nurse practitioner who did not want to come up and answer my questions no matter what. And guess what? He came up. But again, Kathy and I are cut from the same cloth when it comes to
Yeah.
advocacy.
Right.
Yeah, we're not going to let it go. But now somebody asked, the part that you said about insurance cannot dictate what does and doesn't. Yeah.
In a hospital, insurance has no rule. They have they can dictate. This is why it's so hard to get things approved outpatient, I think. They have almost no control of what happens on an inpatient side.
Okay, so that's a good tidbit, folks, right? So if you are in a hospital setting, the insurance has no rule, right?
Also important to note, emergency care. So if you are, a perfect example of how this works, let's say you're out of state and you get appendicitis. You go to the emergency room there. You're just going to pay for your normal, like that. You can't help where you were, where you had the emergency. They will have to cover it. So let's say you were in Tennessee in the Tri-Cities area and you had something happen, but you were able to drive, like, to UT.
I lost her. She'll be back. So her Wi-Fi is a little spotty, but she'll be back. So yeah, and this is the thing that we were talking about is a, when I'm talking to folks. See, I told you she'd be back. Yeah, I was like, yep, her Wi-Fi. Yeah, no, you just went away, but you're back.
Okay. So I'm not sure what cut out when, but like,
you just said if you have something that is not life threatening, right? And you can drive, if you're in the Tri-Cities and you can drive to UT, absolutely drive to UT. And what I tell people all the time, especially because you saw the CMS information that I shared about Ballad Health, right? And
I mean, if Alan Levine were an SEC coach, he would have been fired 3 years ago. Like the first time this first RCM, but like somehow we fail upwards in medicine. Like we just keep going.
Yep. So this is the thing. I have been doing those CMS scores for Ballad. What prompted Brett and Samantha over at KFF to reach out to me the very first time was there was another NPR reporter that was doing a story, and it was about billing, and the person they were talking to was like, you should talk to Danny Cook if you want to know about Ballad Health. And so his name is Bam. And so I reached out to Bram, and so I sent him this document that I created. It's this Ballad Health target. It's a quality report on Ballad. And so I included CMS. I included Leapfrog hospital safety grade. I included Lowen's, right? So it was a whole, and because Alex liked to brag, he loves to brag about US News and World Report. I dug a little deeper into those and put it all in there. And when they reached out to me, they said, we thought this was like an official quality report from like the Department of Health or CMS. It wasn't until at the very last page we saw your email address in tiny print that we realized it was not like an official, it wasn't official anything. And so, but what I've been telling people, and I will tell you today, right? I'm looking up here for TikTok and down here for YouTube and Facebook, but I tell people, listen, when I am sharing this information, especially around the death rates for heart failure and heart attack and stroke and pneumonia and all the things, I keep telling people, I know that those things are daunting and those things are scary. And if you are experiencing what you believe to be any of those symptoms, heart attack, stroke, whatever, you go to your closest hospital.
Sure.
That's where you go. And then once you are stable, then you can request to be transferred to UT or to Vandy or whatever. But you've got that golden hour, folks, is critical. And I never want someone to take the information that I'm giving you and have it cause you more harm down the road, right? So I just want you all to know that when you're thinking about these types of things and how you're looking at your care. A lot of times, Alex, when I'm talking to folks about Ballad Health and about their COPA and their fact that they're a medical monopoly, people will go, oh, but in my town, we only have these two hospitals too. They own everything. And I'm like, you don't understand that there's a difference. There is a difference between a healthcare organization that is operating under a COPA, under a certificate of public advantage, than a hospital that just has merged with someone else or bought a particular hospital. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So I think specifically with Ballad, state laws were completely changed to prevent any competition. And in doing that, they've been carte blanche given anything. They can do anything they want, which includes stripping services from every surrounding hospital and trying to centralize to one. And you'd think, why would they want to do that? You would think they would want to expand it, get more business. But no, they're just stripping it. It's equivalent to it's basically of all of the coal. They are just stripping it down every service everywhere, getting as much money as they can out of it, and then they'll probably scurry out of there and have somebody take over. My guess would be HCA.
This was all my thought as well, right? Because I know Alan's history, I know where he comes from, I know who he came up under, all the things, right? But so a couple of things. Let me ask you your opinion, being a physician, right? So one of the things that Ballad has said when I have published CMS's numbers online, the first time that it got a lot of hoopla was in 2020. Hoopla, yeah. It was in 2022. What is this? 2023. Because it was the first time that I showed everybody Johnson City Medical Center had become a 1-star hospital. And when I posted it on Facebook, it got shared like 900 times. And here's what I did. So remember when I talked to you all about how you get in good trouble? Here's what I did. So if you don't know, a lot of times your hospitals will go to your county commission meetings or your city council meetings, and they will kind of present what Ballad was calling it was the state of your hospital's presentation. Well, because it was a public meeting, political meeting, guess what? Their presentation was online to prepare for the meeting. So I downloaded their PDF in advance, their presentation in advance. And then I did a real state of your hospitals in comparison and point by point, did my own presentation. And the morning of the meeting, I emailed it to every member of the Johnson City Council. And the CEO, I did. Listen, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, right? And so this is what happened. They were live streaming that event. And when they live streamed, so the CEO of Johnson City Medical Center showed up and scrapped their entire presentation. And all he could talk about was CMS ratings and how that's old data and how, these things on social media, they're just not accurately representing, what the picture is. And here's my thing. You and I both know that, yes, medical data is delayed, but that's always been,
for sure.
Right? That's always been the case. And here's my thing. That same medical data was delayed when Johnson City Medical Center was 3 stars and when Bristol Regional was 4 stars, right? It's the same delay in that data as it is today when they are now 1-star hospitals.
I think the most concerning part of the CMS data is that you're looking at the tip of the iceberg data. That is the data that is making hard criteria. That is like the data that says this is absolutely a violation. This is absolutely a violation. You have to work hard to do that.
Yes.
And so I think that's, for me, the scariest part. I may switch to my iPad.
Okay. No worries.
I'm having a little trouble with my
no worries.
computer.
Yeah. And so,
but I think it's terrifying.
Yeah. So, and this is what I tell people all the time. When's the last time you went to go on vacation and you booked yourself a 1-star hotel? You don't, right? You don't. And it is terrifying to me when I look at numbers and I see that 1 out of every for patients that are admitted to Johnson City Medical Center, for example, for stroke or for pneumonia, unalives in 30 days after it was like, so this is what so when they talk about so Michelle, I did a whole I did a whole live about how to find your CMS data, and it's in my link tree. So for those of you guys who want to know, where do you get this? If you go to my link tree with YouTube, Facebook, it is in my profile. TikTok, it's in my profile. Don't apologize, Michelle, no worries. There's a whole little section that says healthcare information, and there's a link to CMS's Hospital Compare website, right? There's links in there where I have showed you where to go and look for the information. I even did a live on Facebook because somebody was like, because it still had Bristol Regional with CABG scores. And somebody was like, well, they haven't done CABGs for over a year. Yeah, but that's because that is still a reporting measurement. It's going to be there for as long as the data that's there falls within the window that CMS is still considering, that number is still going to show up there. So I even showed them how to go into CMS to the archive data. And this is what people don't realize. I'm this diligent. I literally have downloaded the Excel spreadsheets, the raw data, and showed people where you can actually find all the things. And if you scroll all the way to the end, it will tell you what time period that rating covers, right? It will tell you what time period it covers. And the thing that is most alarming to me in the case of Ballad Health, Alex, is that, and I get emotional because this is home. I gave birth at Holston Valley Medical Center. My daughter gave birth there. Your daddy worked there. It matters because these are real people, right? Yeah. It matters. And Alan blamed the CMS ratings on the region being poor and people not eating right, people being fat and poor. That's what he blamed it on. And I said, this region has been about the same economically my entire life, right? We didn't all of a sudden just have this shitty, no, you are the problem, right?
Yeah, no, it's 6 years of you, Alan Levine.
That's
6 years of you. I mean, I think something that you touched on, the fact that they don't do cabbages at Bristol anymore. These are signs that they are stripping. There's no ICU in Elizabethton. I mean, like everything across the board is being stripped down. They don't have neurosurgery at Holston Valley anymore. They don't have a NICU at Holston Valley anymore. They don't have trauma. They don't have anything that used to be.
Talk about neuro for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dr. Ken Smith.
Yeah, I know. I shadowed him.
Only independent neurosurgeon at Holston Valley Medical Center, right? Mm-hmm. Things that began to happen because Ken was standing up to Ballad, right? And so when he would be on call on rotation, all of a sudden, miraculously, the patients that he would be assigned would be the indigent patients. It would be the patients that didn't have health care at all. It would be, or health insurance, right? But the Ballad neurosurgeons, they might get whatever, right?
That's called cherry picking.
That is called cherry picking.
And that's illegal, just so anyone's clear.
And this is what people don't understand, okay? Is when you talk about your hospital, when you own pretty much every hospital in the region, and the independent physicians want to stand up to you, they put themselves at risk because they might not have privileges at that hospital anymore. So my mom's gastroenterology, like in Bristol, Gastroenterology Associates is right here. The hospital's right here. They're on the same block. The last time my mom was in the hospital, Alex, her physicians could not come round on her.
Yeah, no, they've squashed it completely. So even when my dad was pretty much always in private practice, but he did infection control at HVMC. they like basically elbowed him out in a similar way. And so, he had worked other jobs and he ended up doing like vaccine trials and things like that. It worked out fine for him, but like it was very, very similar. And it was all when Ballad took over. It is just not it's very aggressive corporate culture, I would say. I know several physicians there and none of them are happy. Nobody feels like they have an option. That's the other problem with a monopoly like this that's really aggressive. They sue patients, they sue doctors, they sue everybody they can to scare them into compliance
Yeah.
and complacency, basically. And so nobody that I know that's been there is happy. I mean, I know the nursing boards, the travel boards, they're like, do not come here. This is terrible. And it's
But
bad.
let's talk about the travel. Okay, so people. Okay, so somebody said, why are copas allowed and even supported by the government? So we can talk about this a little bit. So for those of you who don't know, when we talk about a copa, there have been several copas. What's up, Sid? Throughout the country, right? So we've had a copa in Montana before. We've had a copa in West Virginia. A COPA that most of you all know in North Carolina is in Asheville. Mission Hospital had a COPA, right? And here's what I will tell you is Alan and their band of merry lawyers were really smart when they looked through that COPA law and how to ensure that Tennessee's COPA law was going to be ironclad. So Tennessee's COPA law is written, and not only does it say that they are the wording of the law is that they are intentionally displacing competition in exchange for state oversight, right? Which is not a thing, by the way.
No.
But it actually says that if the legislature were to repeal its COPA law, it would not undo the existing COPA. Did you know that?
Did.
So a lot of people don't know. So when we talk about what a COPA is, so a COPA is something that's called a certificate of public advantage. And Alex, chime in with me and add to it. So in a nutshell, here's what you want to know. The majority of states in this country have a law called the Hospital Cooperation Act of 1993, which is a great law. Here's what it said. It says, listen, if you got two hospitals in rural communities or inner cities and they are struggling financially because a lot of the population is on government insurance and that sort of thing, right? It says, listen, what those hospitals can do is they can cooperate, right? If you got a surgeon like Alex Maki and this hospital needs someone, then you guys can share physicians. If I have a state-of-the-art MRI machine and you don't, and you need yours breaks, then you can have your patients come and use mine. The idea was to make it so that hospitals could provide quality, safe, appropriate care and still not be in the red, not go under. That was the whole purpose. And what they started to do is they started to take these laws in the state legislature. And in Tennessee's case, the state senator that they used to sponsor the legislation had actually been under contract as a vendor for over a decade, right? Senator Rusty Crowe is a contracted vendor for Ballad Health and has been since like 2009-ish. He started out with his company, Shared Health Services, and then he went directly to Mountain States Health Alliance, which then became Ballad Health, right? So what a COPA law says is, listen, not only can these hospitals cooperate, but now they can merge. They can become one entity. And then they are going to be protected from antitrust laws, things that would normally have the FTC breathing down their backs, right? That would have them investigated. Those things don't apply in theory, right? Because our state is giving them active supervision. Now, here's the thing. Active supervision has never been defined in the terms of certification, ever. And it's never been tested in court to know what it means. And that's what makes it so difficult for the FTC to come in afterwards, because there's no precedent that has been set to say, what is active supervision? Are reports just enough or not, right? And so this is what happened in where I'm from. So where I'm from, we're talking Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia. This is where Alex's dad worked for a long time. She shadowed a bunch of the the doctors there. The region is geographically the size of New Jersey, the state of New Jersey. Okay. And Ballad Health controls 97% of the inpatient population in the major metro area, right? And pretty much everywhere else, right? And that's before we start to talk about the nursing homes they control, their own pharmacies that they own, their bank. You know, they have a credit union, their own credit union. Because they are, number one, they're the largest employer in the region. So now car dealerships are having a hard time competing with Ballad Health credit union in terms of giving car loans to people, because Ballad can give a better interest rate for their employees than the car dealership can compete against. So now they have a monopoly there, right? They're now in the daycare business as well. I don't know if you know that, Alex, but they are in the daycare business now. And then they created these things called these accountable care communities, right? And what happens now is now all these small nonprofits in the region that used to get grants for their work, okay, because Ballad has so generously partnered with them, Ballad staff has the ability to apply for and get those grants first. And now if those nonprofits don't play ball with Ballad, then Ballad doesn't have to give them the grant money that they used to be able to get on their own, right? So it has now bled into all of these other areas of the region,
Right.
And what do you do?
Okay, so like the COPA is a complete, like the COPA oversight is a farce. I personally wrote to them because like I think the most prominent thing I saw, so my dad quickly had a massive MI. They didn't diagnose it, they didn't treat it, they actually denied it, and I had to have him air flighted out of there. By the way, with Medicare, that was a $275 flight, and that was a 2.5-hour air flight, critical condition. So you can, if you have Medicare, fly your family members to UT, to Vanderbilt. So please exercise that option. The COPA, so while I was there, the ICU was 4-to-1. I mean, my dad's ICU nurse, my dad is going into cardiogenic shock. His blood pressure is dropping. He's clearly diaphoretic, severe chest pain. And she has 3 other patients. There are literally no aides. By the way, it's a Wednesday morning. We ordered an echo. We had an echo ordered the night before at 10 p.m. It didn't get done till 1 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. And that delayed my father's care even further. We called 9 different times to get the echo tech up there. And it wasn't like she wasn't on the floor. I saw her at 9 a.m. But it was, they're completely understaffed. And so that's one of the ways that big hospital organizations actually get more money. They basically will hire a bunch of nurse practitioners, fewer doctors. And then the nurse practitioners feed in multiple ways, right? They order undue tests. They like feed into multiple new consults because they can't vet anything themselves. The staffing issues are basically if you have not enough nurses or not enough physicians, like one physician in the ER for the second busiest hospital in your system is not adequate. I mean, that is not enough oversight. If there's no one there, there's no one there to diagnose it. So I write this all down in a letter to the COPA people. And they're like, staffing's not our problem. I was like, oh, it is. It's 100% your problem. In 2023, the cardiologist wrote from Johnson City saying they couldn't even fill the cath. Yes, I did. I even sent it to the COPA people. They couldn't staff their cath lab 50% of the time. Heart disease is the #1 killer in Tennessee, #1. And you're telling me that the staffing is not your problem? It's 100% your problem. If you're going to have a COPA, you have to have unions. You have to have a union to counteract this. And Ballad needs one big time.
So we're going to get to the union thing. I just got really excited. So AFT, American Federation of Teachers Unions, also has a huge healthcare union, a nurses union. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
AFT has
That's good.
Yes. So in November of 2023, they brought me as one of 3 people on the panel. It was an advocate panel. And they brought me in as a rural advocate. And so I got a chance to talk to all of them. You should have seen the nurses' faces when I showed them, because I have this, I need to share the link with you. I've tracked all of Ballad's quality scores since prior to and after the COPA in a huge Google sheet. So you can really see every year how much it's gotten worse or whatever, right?
I'd love to see that.
When I showed it to the nurses, they were like, are you sure you're not a union rep? I was like, I'm positive. I don't. And they were like, well, are you a nurse? No, I had no medical background until, and I know those of you all who have followed me for a long time are sick of hearing this story, but I need for you to understand something. I was not hired by doctors. I never wanted to move back home to the Tri-Cities, right? The most diverse county where I'm from is 91% white, right? I don't have happy memories there. It was a very traumatic place to grow up as a biracial woman in the 70s and 80s, right? That was not my jam. But and this is literally how it happened, when the people who save your grandchild's life say, we don't know what to do, we're hearing they're going to close our NICU, and you're the only person we know that might be able to do anything, because I had a decent following on Facebook at the time and had a big mouth. And when you find out in just 5 days, Alex, is how long it took me to find out who Rusty Crowe was, who Alan Levine was, what a COPA was, what legal experts say about a COPA, right? Because everybody except for the people Ballad paid said this is a bad damn idea, don't do it. After that, my friends were like, girl, how much time are you going to give this? And I said, I don't know. And I said, but here's my thing. This is what I said at one time. I'll never forget telling my friend Donna. I said, if I give these people 3 months of my life and I'm able to help them understand exactly what's happened, right? Because I thought in my naivety that surely to God, the state of Tennessee couldn't possibly understand what had happened. Surely the Department of Health did not know.
Right.
That's what I thought. Then
Yeah.
I, and it helped save 1 million people's healthcare. Great. I didn't expect to move home. I didn't expect to lose my business. I didn't expect to sit outside of a public right of way 24 hours a day, 257 days a week. None of that was expected. But here's what I know. It doesn't matter if we disagree politically. It doesn't matter. You are people. And it is wrong to take advantage of the most vulnerable. It is wrong.
So wrong.
And that's what they did. You and I know that folks back home are just trusting. They think that if you're showing up if you're showing up to the farmer's market and you're telling them this is a good thing, and and they grew up going to school with you, then they should just believe you.
They sold it to the physicians that this would be good too.
Yep.
And it wasn't within a year that they were all like, oh God, no.
Right. And I see this, and the thing that frustrates me, sorry. There is one, it is crazy to me. There is one neonatal intensive care unit for that entire region, an area that accounts for 1/4 of all premature births in the state of Tennessee. And there's one, right? And it's not centrally located, by the way. There's one level 1 trauma center in a region that is geographically the size of New Jersey. Can you imagine going to the state of New Jersey and there being one level 1 trauma center for the entire state? Absolutely fucking not.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so the thing that just gets me about this is these folks knew exactly what they were doing.
100%.
I got my hands on, did you get your hands on the Bishop and Associates plan for for the hospitals for the trauma changes?
No.
Okay, I will send you copies of the one that
Okay.
I didn't get the entire thing when I requested it. So let me tell y'all what happened. After they passed this COPA law, they then introduce another law that made almost everything that was supposed to be transparent to the public protected. So now the public couldn't get it. So you could send a FOIA request, but if they determined that that was protected, you didn't have the right to know. And so what Ballad Health told everyone is that Bishop and Associates had done this study, an assessment of the region and of the hospitals, and they had determined that Johnson City Medical Center was the best location for the level 1 trauma center, not Holston Valley, which didn't make any sense geographically speaking, right? Or anything else. But here's what I know. So the data, by the way, Mr. Kingsport, what's his name, y'all? Who's Mr. Kingsport? Jeff, is it Fleming?
That
Anyway,
sounds-
he's retired. I think that's it. He was the old city manager. So he provided some of this data to them about like how many people in the region like traveled and this, that, and the other. But here's what they did. So they did a report that shows the number of people within the golden hour, right? The 60-minute window of the golden hour, but not anybody that was outside of it, right? So if you were already excluded from the golden hour, you weren't counted in that number, right? So if you were in Lee County, Virginia, it didn't matter if they moved it because you were already outside the golden hour, right? And I'm going to kind of guesstimate a little bit because I don't know the numbers as perfect as I used to, but here's what I will tell you is that what the data showed is that if they had kept the level 1 trauma center at Holston Valley Medical Center, that it would have only excluded the golden hour of care for roughly 17,000 people. Okay. By moving so that the only level 1 was in Johnson City, it excluded the golden hour. Jeff Fleming, right. It excluded 84,000 people from the golden hour of care. So I'm military, I'm a veteran. What I know is if you have collateral damage, you want it to be the smallest amount possible. These people intentionally chose to exclude 84,000 people from the golden hour of care when it needed to only be 17,000. And you're a healthcare system.
I truly believe that that's like a guise. I actually don't I don't think it's healthcare. I believe it's, I mean, it's more of like a controlled kill experiment. It is, that's what my brothers call it. It is so bad. Like going there, I love going there. We've lived in the area for 20 years. We'd never lived anywhere for that long. I called it home. I have very good friends that live there. I am repeatedly awestruck by how bad it is. We'll get calls and family, friends, those kind of people, just about the non-care, the heart attack that goes without the cabbage for 7 weeks while they recover. I mean, I work in a heart hospital. That's not really standard. I mean, I can tell you that. Right. That is because there's really nobody there to do it anymore. They don't have staff that can do these procedures. You are looking at a place that is pretty barren as far as medical expertise.
And that's the part that gets me, because they will stand in front of the public, and I blame the local media for repeating the lies and not holding them accountable, right?
Yeah.
Because they will stand in front of everybody and say, oh, that's not the case, right? So one of the things that I contend, and I do believe this to be true, I believe that this violates consumer protection laws, because if you know that the service that you are providing is not the quality that you are telling the public that it is, right?
Yeah.
That is illegal. It's Section 5.
Nice.
I happen to know the law. right? And I can share you the law, right? And here's when I told them about this. So let me see if I can share this with you. Um, let me do a screen share real quick. And
Any Good Samaritan lawyers out there want to take this on? Because I mean, I think it would be ideal. It's a
I
great precedent case.
Yes. Okay. So I came home after my mom's situation to see, and you guys can't see it on TikTok, but I want you to listen. This is a commercial called "We Are Ballad Proud." And when I saw this 2 years ago, I was fucking livid. So follow me. Here it is. Watch.
Who are we? We are Ballad Proud, inspiring transformation in the Appalachian Highlands.
We don't live in the Appalachian Highlands. We live in a valley.
Common goal, working to improve lives. We take pride in our work, pride in our mission, pride in our communities. We are Ballad Proud.
So that's one of them. There's another one that says the awards are stacking up. Let me see if I can find that one real quick. That might have been the one that I just saw. So there's plenty of them, but there was another one, Alex, that it said the awards are stacking up, and it showed this. It was check mark some, and I was like, sounds like fucking cereal. What is this thing? And they were showing all of these awards at the end where, imagine you're on a Zoom, you guys. Thank you for subscribing, Lefty. Imagine you're on a Zoom and there's like 100 boxes on the Zoom. All of them, you would see these awards popping up. And I said, but that's not true. Like it's legitimately not accurate. And so, yeah, Amanda said no. So this was the thing. I immediately was like, you are intentionally lying to, when you go back home, every billboard, there's a ballot ad. Like, here's the thing. If you're a medical monopoly, why do you need billboards and TV ads? Because you're the only game in town.
So we as doctors always find it funny when we have all these managers have all these fake credentials after their names, like they've been Dr. adjacent so long they now have like initial envy, and so they so I find people that have to tote their own horn and put up these ads. That is all BS. I mean, it is all BS, and there is no way you will convince me that that is a decent hospital. There are too many stories that I know, and too many stories that have been shared with me from other physicians, and too many things that go on. Like, look at your Google reviews. These are just cries for help. These are literally cries for help. That is what I wrote to the Joint Commission, who, of course, didn't find anything wrong. It's terrible. I mean, it's really terrible. I still haven't heard back from CMS. I filed, oh, by the way, you can file EMTALA violations. So if you have not been transferred and a hospital does not have the service you need, i.e. some sort of neurosurgical service, cardiovascular service, and they address that this is not available at this hospital and they do not stabilize and transfer you, that's an EMTALA violation. That's a big deal for a hospital.
It is. So let me just say this. So Ballad Health has had EMTALA in violations. They have had in their first couple of years, I don't even know if you know this, Alex, in their first couple of years, they had 4 or 5 immediate jeopardies because of the death of a patient. Did you know that? Guys, an immediate jeopardy is a big damn deal, right? And they had 4 or 5 of them. So I'm going to share something. So those of you guys back home, this is an exclusive. I haven't even told you all about this one yet. So everybody remembers that the former CEO of Bristol Regional Medical Center, Greg Neal, participated in a cardiothoracic open heart surgery of a patient, even though he has no medical training.
And those credentials after his name, CEO.
Right. Yep. Right. Greg Neal, not a damn doctor in the least, but had a scalpel. And listen, if you've not read them, so it's really interesting. So Dr. Eric Nathan Smith, that is the cardiothoracic surgeon who happens to be a family friend of Greg O'Neill. If you read, he's now practicing in Mississippi because in the state of Tennessee, all they required him to do was take these like 2 little ethics weekend classes. And I think he paid like $1,000 or $2,000 in a fine. That's it. That's all that happened to that doctor, Alex. That's it. That is all that happened. And he's now practicing in Mississippi, Dr. Eric Nathan Smith. I'm going to say it again. But you can actually read, because when he got the job in Mississippi, he was still on probation, right? Under a probationary period. So you can read Mississippi's account of everything that happened, but you can also read Tennessee's account of what happened. And so I have both. Okay. But so people are like, wait, what? He participated in the surgery. So this was the CEO of Bristol Regional Medical Center, Greg Neal. And in October of 2020, he scrubbed in a cardiothoracic open surgery, cabbage, right? And he took a scalpel in his hand and made the initial incision into the chest of a patient. He also held the forceps and the suction during that procedure. He and the surgeon actually took selfies while they were in there. Yeah, all of that happened. All of it. Now, let me tell you, do you know the only reason people know the truth about what happened is because staff contacted me. That's the only reason. So here's what happened is that Friday, Ballad put out a little blurb in the Bristol Herald Courier and other places. And all it said was, Greg Neal is stepping down. Chad Couch will be the interim CEO at Bristol Regional. We want to thank Greg for his years of dedicated service and blah, 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 right? It was this glowing, we love you, Greg, blah, 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 blah. And employees reached out to me and said, Dani, that ain't what happened. What's up, Wawa? Hey, Phantom. Dani, that ain't what happened. And I said, wait, what? He did what? Surely not. And once I got it verified with 3 sources that I trusted, the first thing I did was file a complaint with the Tennessee healthcare facilities, right? It's now the Tennessee Health Commission. But I filed a complaint and then I went live. And then I went live and said, this is what allegedly took place. And I put that out on, I think, the 24th of August. And the very next day, the Bristol Herald Courier carried the real story. And Greg Neal admitted what he did. And then he went and he practiced like in Abu Dubai, not practice medicine, but he worked at a hospital in Abu Dubai. And now he's back in Bristol and he's the CEO of Appalachian Orthopedics. Oh, and by the way, when you say he got fired, he was allowed to resign and he was paid $250,000 for the 2 months of that fiscal year that he worked.
So I think this is a sad, horrible story, and obviously shows how much the management in hospitals thinks they dictate care. And I think that should be a really big red flag to anyone listening, is just what audacity did this man have to think that he should be allowed to be anywhere near a blue drape. It's disgusting. In addition, it also is sad because now that region doesn't have cardiothoracic surgery.
At that very hospital.
Yes. And you're not going to attract anybody with that history. Nobody with decent credentials is going to have that, want to go there. You know, like for me as a physician and a surgeon, hearing that story and knowing where that person was in their career, I can see where they would feel obligated if the CEO said to do that. It's kind of like their person is in a position of power, and that person probably felt like they had to do it in order to maintain their job. And I think that part's really hard. It's really sad. I mean, like, I don't think what he did was right in any way, shape, or form. I don't want you to think that. But to become a cardiothoracic surgeon, you have a minimum of 5 years of general surgery, 2 to 3 years of cardiothoracic surgery on top of your 4 years of medical school and your 4-year college degree. This is not some light endeavor. You can't just get another one at the grocery store. And so I don't know that I would say he shouldn't practice medicine. But I do think that story went live to so many physicians that I think it was a good cautionary tale. Watch your CEOs. Don't just do what they tell you to. Like they're going to try to push, and they do. I mean, all the time.
They do. And so let me say this now, tying this into the COPA.
Mm-hmm.
So cardiology was one of the specialties outlined in the COPA where Ballad is supposed to seek permission before they hire anyone, because the other groups there's not a lot of competition in the like they did this for specific groups, and cardiology was one of them. So he was hired in June of 2019. Alan Levine sends a letter to the Tennessee Department of Health in October of 2019. Don't ask me how I still remember this. Basically saying, oh yeah, oops, we know we were supposed to ask for permission, but we'd rather ask for forgiveness and tell you that we already hired this dude. That's how he got the job, right? Mm-hmm. Now I'll tell you what's happened. Now ETSU, Ballad Health's main competitor in terms of physicians, MEAC is their competitor. It's listed on the COPA application, right? They just joined cardiology with Ballad. And I have the letters to prove it. And no, it hasn't been approved. And nobody at the state is talking about it. But it's a thing. And I have the letters to patients to prove it, right? Now, here's my thing. When you have a one-off situation, I get it. But would you agree with me that if you have a pattern of behavior with employees doing inappropriate things regarding care, that it's indicative of the culture of that hospital or healthcare system?
That is one of the most hostile, disgusting cultures I've ever seen. It's terrible.
So let me tell you what just happened. I'm going to tell you about Travis Reed, an LPN at Holston Valley Medical Center. I am looking at this document. Let me share it with you so that you can see it, Alex, and I'm happy to send it to you. So you know what this sucker is. This is consent. This is a case number and a consent order. So let me share with you what this says. This LPN at Ballad Health at Holston Valley Medical Center actually gave a patient an A-line, an arterial line was placed by an LPN January 28th of last year. That LPN put in the chart that arterial line was placed by a physician who wasn't even in the hospital at the time that it was placed. I'm reading the document. So here's what it says. Respondent was employed as a licensed practical nurse with Holston Valley Medical Center from December 2016 through January 30th of 2024. On or about January 28th of 2024 at approximately 3:45 p.m., the respondent placed an arterial line, an A-line, in patient LS. On or about January 28th, 2024, the respondent documented in patient LS medical chart that the A-line was placed by physician TJM. Physician TJM had been removed as patient LES is attending at 12:55 p.m. on January 28th of 2024 and had left the hospital as of 2:30 p.m. on that date. On or about January 30th of 2024, the respondent met with Holston Valley Medical Center's Human Resources Director. At that meeting, respondent admitted to entering false information into patient LS's medical chart. The respondent also admitted that he knew placing the A-line was outside the scope of practice for an LPN. On that day, their employment was ended with Holston Valley Medical Group. Holston Valley Medical Hospital.
This screams to me that this person was forced to do it, and the low man on the totem pole had to take the consequences yet again.
So I had the same suspicion, but before I said anything about it, I wanted to just share it with you and see what your response or your reaction was as a patient. As a physician. I'm reading notes over here. And here's the reason why I say this. I I told nurses way back in 2018 and 2019 that when they continue to cut services, when they continue to do telemedicine with NICU babies, right? Which they did, right?
Mhm.
And you now no longer have a neonatologist in-house to intubate an infant, right? A neonate.
Mhm.
And that shit goes south, you are going to be the one on the chopping block because you didn't want to let the baby expire, and you didn't have anyone there to do it. And I can promise you, Ballad is never going to put themselves on the hook for you.
No way. And I guarantee any conversations with that LPN were in person, on the phone, not recorded. Absolutely nothing was written down. So I think another thing people should be aware of, if you're a nurse, if you're a healthcare provider, if you see something wrong, email it. Email it to all the direct channels. It will protect you more than an armored shield. That is the number one rule with them. They absolutely only want to have conversations, and they make sure as hell that they are not recorded.
And let me tell you this. So I am a big advocate. So when people would say, well, Dani, what would be good things for you to send? And I said, well, first of all, I'm not requesting that you send me anything. I am never going to ask you to send me anything. And if you would like to do such a thing, what I would recommend is that you do not forward it to yourself. Do not forward it to me. Take a screenshot, take a picture with your phone of that computer screen to have that documentation, right? And you would say, well, why would you say such a thing? Because number one, I'm not going to ask anybody to break the law ever. Now, if you want to do that all on your own because you believe that ethically or morally,
So there are laws. Tennessee has whistleblower laws. So if you work at Ballad and you're seeing this, you can go to a lawyer. There are whistleblower laws. You are protected.
And so what I would love to start to do, because here's what people ask me a lot. People ask me for attorneys that they can use. And you and I, we've talked about this, right?
Yeah.
And what a challenge that can be. So first of all, people, I need for you to understand something. People think that just because the hospital does something wrong, you can sue. First of all, understand that Alex went, yeah, it's
Not a Ballad.
It's not a thing. And because, so here's the thing, it has to be, what are the long-term consequences and impact of that error that was committed, right? Is there something that is permanently existing as a result of what they did or didn't do? And an attorney is going to want to know that because they work on a contingency basis, right? So
for money, and there's
for
cap.
money.
So
Yes.
even with death or amputation of wrong limb, $1 million is the cap. That you burn through that in legal fees so quickly. That is one of the reasons you won't get anybody to take your case for Ballad.
But let me give you this, because I found a beautiful piece of information that I shared just as a public service announcement for anybody that's in the state of Tennessee. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
The state of Tennessee actually does allow punitive damages in medical malpractice cases. The claimant has to prove by clear and convincing evidence that the defendant acted maliciously, intentionally, fraudulently, or recklessly. And then there are statutory caps on the amount of punitive damages that can be awarded. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a cap on non-economic damages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's 750,000, and then it can increase to $1 million, which is the $1 million that Alex is talking about. But then you could also go to the punitive side, which can go up to it's either 2 times the compensatory damages or $500,000. Okay.
So what that ends up getting kicked back at, so we actually spoke with like the #1 med mal lawyer in Nashville about my dad's case pretty extensively, and my sister's a lawyer. Those will typically go back to court and be knocked down to significantly less money, and that's never publicized.
So, and this is the thing. So what people don't understand is Tennessee also has, so most states, you have 2 to 3 years for a medical malpractice case. Tennessee, it's 1 year. You have
Yep.
1 year in the state of Tennessee to let them know that you intend to file, right? To report it and all that kind of stuff. So it's important to know that Tennessee is a state that favors corporations over people. It's just a fact. That's the case.
Mhm.
So I want to say this because I also want to be respectful of your time, and I would love to have you back. So because there's so many places where this overlaps, right? So we can talk about this from just Ballad Health. We can talk about it from, so share with them real quick, Alex. You and I were talking about the increase in administrative personnel in
Oh my
healthcare systems and hospitals compared to practitioners.
So I've got to get you this slide. This was the most recent one, I think, was from 2018. So before COVID, which anybody who works in medicine will say COVID, they literally took the staffing shortages and just everybody no longer does their job. There are 4 other people that do it. The exponential increase since the early 2000s in hospital administrators is directly tied to poor care. Directly. Our care quality is diminishing across the board. I have only been in practice 11 years, and I can tell you it is dramatic decline. It's sad. I mean, it's really sad. But it is not where I am only. I literally interviewed across the country last year early, and it was shocking how many physicians called afterwards to say, this place is not better, it's actually worse, and could highlight why they were leaving. They wouldn't have even told their partners yet, and they would call me and be like, I don't want you to take this job thinking that this is a good job. And I'm really grateful for those conversations.
Right.
But, it was really eye-opening to know that, like, there is no grass is greener anymore. The grass is green where you water it. So, I think for me personally, that meant leaving an employed position and starting my own private practice. That helps me deal with it.
And listen, so there's a pediatrician back home, Susan Johnson,
Mhm.
who I love and highly, highly, highly respect. She's actually going to join me on a podcast. We got to set the date. But she's coming to talk to me about measles and vaccinations.
Oh, great.
Because she's a pediatrician.
Yeah.
And I want people to hear from pediatricians, not from RFK or anyone else, about healthcare.
You can get titers. So that is important. I actually just got them for myself. As you age, you tend to lose your ability to fight off things, especially as you're approaching your 60s and 70s. Your MMR from childhood may be obsolete. You can actually get a titer. It can be drawn by your primary care. It's pretty easy to check for pertussis, for DTaP, for all of those, just to make sure you're still immunologically protected, if that is something that is a concern for you.
So my daughter just went to work into the healthcare field, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she had her titers done, and she was like, "So,
Mhm.
Mom, I have to go. I have to get this. I have
A
to get this.
booster. Mhm.
I have to get." And I'm like, "Yeah." And this is one of the reasons why I was so irritated during C-19 and since. I was so irritated when people acted like it was an atrocity to require healthcare individuals to get a vaccination, when in fact you are required to get them anyway. And that's why they do titers. They every so often will do and a titer is just a specific type of test to see how much immunization, yeah, that you still have from something, right? Oh, great, Haley B. Good to see you. So, this is, and when people talked about it in the military, and I was like, do y'all understand what it is when you come down on orders to go somewhere and they put you in a line? Like, this is how they did it with Alex when I joined the military. Yeah. Listen, I was in a line. They had us in a whole line. We had to roll up our sleeves, and there was somebody with the on both sides, just ching, ching,
God.
Ching, ching. Yeah, you don't get to pick and choose what vaccine. Like, you think you're going to Korea and you're not getting your typhoid? You think you're going to Korea? Like,
yellow fever, you need it all
of it. And so this is the part that gets me. And it's like, people don't understand the reason why we have more diagnoses, more accurate diagnosis of conditions is because we have better science. We have better medicine. So we're going to know more about these things. Thank God. Women, do you still want people to think that you're hysterical and force you to get a hysterectomy, right? Like science makes us better.
Mhm.
And it makes it better when we don't politicize it. So
Right.
and that's the thing. So I do want to draw a parallel for you
Yeah.
folks at home who are going to be really mad at me, and it's okay because I still love you, even though many of you all don't like me. You don't know how many times, Maki, I hear people say, "Well, you know, I supported you when you was fighting that there Ballard Health, but this whole politic thing you're doing now, I just can't support it." And I always come back with, you never supported me to start with. You supported me fighting for you,
Right.
right? That's number
Right.
one. Number two, Ballad Health is a political thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Ballad Health was created
Yeah.
by
Forged in
politicians.
politics.
Right,
Forged.
right. It
Yes.
is forged in politics. So the
Yes.
idea that you think that these two things are not the same is astounding to me. And the folks that gave you Ballad Health are the folks that are giving you people wanting to get rid of your Medicaid and people wanting to get rid of your
Yep.
Social Security. It's the same people. They are the
Same
same
people.
folks. So if you're pissed off that Rusty Crowe gave you Ballad Health, you might want to remember that Rusty Crowe delivers you to Donald Trump, to Social Security cuts, to Medicaid, to all the things. It's a clear line. They are the same people. So I need for you all to kind of wrap your head around that, right? There's a reason Alan Levine is Republican. There's a reason Alan Levine is up Bill Lee's ass. There's a reason that he's with Rick Scott. There's a reason, right? Love you back, T. And so you can be mad at me, but I was on the right side of Ballad Health, and I am on the right side of politics. I don't care what you think. I'm not a registered Democrat. What I am is a person who has and always will care about people. That's it for me. That's where I draw the line. That's it. All I care about is people.
Yeah.
And
Completely agree with that.
I don't like stop letting them take advantage of you.
They're literally dividing the playing field to make it easier to control you. That is what this is. Stop fighting amongst yourselves and just realize who the real people who are benefiting off the deaths of your loved ones are. It is the CEOs. It is the United CEO. It is the CEO of Ballad Health. It is the CEO of all these major corporations, HCA, all of them. They are all profiting off of people's misery. And it's disgusting.
It is. And Alex, I said this about Luigi and the whole Brian Thompson thing.
Yeah.
Said, let me just share this with you all. People want to demonize the corner boy selling party favors to take care of their family, but they celebrate the corner boy unaliving your loved ones by denying their medical claims every year. The corner boys in the corner offices are just as guilty, if not worse, than the corner boys fighting for their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They are no different. Don't you demonize poor criminals and celebrate rich criminals.
Yep.
Like it just is what it is. So let me say this. I appreciate you. We have never met in person. And I feel I just know, I know you're my people. When Kathy sent you to me, I know you're my people.
Same.
And the thing is the thing that makes me know you're my people is it's just about people.
Yeah, 100%. For me, it's always been about like patients. I just want my patients to be well taken care of. I really do. I think that's super important. And like, it's getting more and more lost. And I can't stand that. Like it drove my dad crazy. I may have taken up the charge. I can't stand it. I love seeing patients. I love taking care of them. I wish I could do it in a faster, more efficient way than one-on-one, but this is the career path I chose. And so if I can help anyone in that area, please reach out. I I've done what I like continue to pester people with complaints and try to bring awareness. I am going to reach out to Indiana, who's currently going through their COPA, and reach out and see if I can help maybe give a statement about the absolutely awful care that non-care that my father received at Ballad Health.
So here's what I would say is that one of the things that that I think, because I know that Indiana, because they had put this on hold. I don't know if you know this or not.
They did. Yeah.
They put it on hold after Brett and Samantha did their first big article on Ballad. The Indiana COPA was put on hold. And now it's back to the forefront again because
it's a similar area in Indiana to the Tri-Cities. So I know a CRNA that worked up there, and it is very, very similar. Very few staff, very few physicians.
They said, Commissioner Alvarado said at the last COPA hearing that it was important that Tennessee, quote unquote, get this right because the eyes of the nation were on them or watching them. I have always said that the Ballad Health COPA was a model for rural health care in this country. And it's a horrible model for patients. And guess what, folks? It's a horrible model. It's a horrible model for staff. When I say staff, I mean support staff. I mean providers. I mean nurses. I mean
everyone.
RTs. The only people it ain't bad for are the
managers.
Are the administrators. That's it. Those are the only people that this shit is good for. It is not you. Yeah. And so what I would say is, in addition to reaching out to Indiana, I don't know where they are in their COPA law process. Okay. But if it's like Tennessee, they are required to hold these public hearings about it. And so we had folks, the FTC sent folks down and they spoke at those public hearings, but very few physicians did, right? So Dan Polgears did, but like none of the doctors in the Tri-Cities came to speak out against this and explain just how bad it was. And what I would recommend, what I think would be the most important thing ever would be to have community forums so that the people understood, because the people will not know what a COPA is. They will not understand what is because it's dense. You and I know this.
Right.
And so we have to get people informed before it happens. We have to stop being a responsive body of people and become proactive. We have to become proactive in order to fix things. And guess what? I believe that things can be fixed. We are not that far gone. And it is what's necessary. So I want to thank you for every bit of your time because it is precious and valuable, and I appreciate you. I've said this to you before. Every time I can even see when you think about your dad, and the pain that crosses your face just makes me break into. Every single time, it's like I can feel how and I think the thing that makes it offensive, right? Because it's horrible. But what's offensive about it is he gave them 15 years of his life giving amazing, incredible care to patients and his peers, and they gave him nothing.
Yeah, that was really hard. Actually, one of the last things I got to tell my dad was how on Memorial Day, all his doctors here came in at midnight to come and see him. So he did get the care that he had always given to other people. And I really was so happy I could actually say that, because to tell him what happened because he forgot from all the procedures, and to tell him that 2 or 3 different times and watch him cry. My dad, the German stout, was really, really awful. I hope to never repeat that in my life. I hope nobody experiences that. As a physician, it felt like I was drowning. It really did. It will take me many years, probably longer, to get over it. But I try to use my, downside. We're going to fight for the other people.
That's how we do, right? That's what we do.
That's just it. Yeah.
That is what we do, 100%. Yeah, I think for those of you all who are interested in the entire the podcast episode. It is Monopoly Healthcare. Monopoly, it's more than just a game. That is my podcast episode that Alex and I talk about exactly what happened to her dad and the care that he did not receive from the people that he had worked amongst for many, many years. And it was only after she fought and she arranged the life flight to get him out of there and to her hospital that her father got the care that he deserved to get, that everyone deserves to get. And here's what I will offer to you all. If it was this hard for a general surgeon, if they didn't listen to a general surgeon, do not think that they're blowing you off because you don't know anything. They're blowing you off because they don't have the staff, or they don't have the equipment, or they don't have the ability to do what needs to be done.
Yep. And they're being told by administration that they can't do something. I'm telling you, that's a fact.
Yeah. So I appreciate you, Alex. We will be in touch.
Sounds good, Dani.
Yeah. Take care of you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Vanessa. Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate you, Vanessa. So listen, guys, I'm going to wrap things up because y'all know it's about time for my grandbabies to make their way back to my house and for me to put them to bed. I truly hope that tonight's live and tonight's broadcast has been beneficial for you. I really do. I hope that you learned things from Joe and his conversation, and from Alex and her conversation, and both of their contributions to us in this space. She's not on TikTok. She's on Blue Sky though. Don't make me lie, Titus, though. Don't make me lie. I will put it in my link tree. How about that? So you can watch this full live on both YouTube. You're welcome, Mary Hubbard, on YouTube and on Facebook, right? Because I'm live there now and it's going to stay there. I am also downloading this and exporting the audio, and I will be uploading it to tomorrow to the podcast. So if you subscribe to my podcast, The Dani Cook Show, on Podbean or on Audible or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, this entire thing will be available for you to listen to there tomorrow. Okay. So my hope is to do lives like this, where I have guests come on and talk to you about things that are not just political, but maybe they intersect in the world of politics, but it's information that is beneficial to you and your loved ones, knowing what you can do when it comes to, requesting to be transferred and asking for second opinions, and, and understanding, what you can do when it comes to your local politics and your state legislatures, and why all of these things are important, right? So the goal is to be doing this type of live about 3 times a week. That is the goal. Yeah, T, we can have that conversation. There is an entire section on healthcare in my link tree that shows you how to go to look up your healthcare, your hospital's grades and scores from CMS. I will tell you, if you have a hospital and your hospital is a nonprofit, number one, that does not mean they don't make money. Stop thinking that for-profit hospitals are the worst. Nonprofit hospitals are also the worst. They're all making a shit ton of money at the expense of patients. Okay. But you can actually go to ProPublica's Nonprofit Explorer and you can look up their Form 990 tax returns, and you can see just how much money they're paying their CEOs and their vice presidents and their administrators. Okay. So you can find that information out. When they tell you they don't have money, call them out on their bullshit, and then talk to your elected officials. And again, I'm going to tell you, right? If your elected official isn't fighting for you, fire them. Get them out of that office, get them out of that job. And if they are running unopposed, run against them. If they are running unopposed, run against them. Okay. I appreciate you all very much. Thank you for all of my paid subscribers, all of you guys that like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you all tremendously. You have no idea. And I am grateful to your support and the way that you help me show up, right? And what I hope to do is continue to grow what we're doing here and the community, the information that we are getting out for people, and truly make a difference long term. Okay, so I'm going to go and find something to eat for dinner. I do appreciate you all. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all the things, and I will see you all later. Okay, good night, folks.